No, today's Miss Me With That is one on multilateral double standards. The way the world operates, we're made to feel like equals, but that's not often the case. So today is about the talk of the appearance of equality or even equity. Sometimes people throw away the word equality and they say, let's be equitable on a global stage. It's a farce basically as old as time. I'll give several examples, but I know you will think of at least 10 more as I just go through this. The basics of how we view the world. On the most commonly used map, which is what you probably used to learn in school and what you will see on a globe when you buy either a physical globe or a little trinket, whether you buy an atlas, it's called a Mercator map. Greenland looks about the same size as Africa, ukiangalia tu na macho. But in reality, Africa is 14 times larger. Africa is 30.3 million square kilometers. That means you could fit the US, China, India, Japan, and most of Europe inside Africa. I know that it's not computing because of how the map looks, but yes, you could fit the US, China, India, Japan, and most of Europe within Africa. And the Equal Earth Projection, which is a map that was introduced in 2018, is aiming to fix this. It's designed to balance both area accuracy for a more natural look, and many educators and organizations are now switching to that. But think of what it has done over the years to our perception of the size of Africa. Think of what our perception of our size does to us on regional tables when we are negotiating for anything. Not that size matters, but it does sometimes. There's also the issue of how we operate on global tables. The United Nations Security Council, for example, has 15 members, 5 who are permanent, 10 rotating seats. The 5 members who are permanent have veto power, meaning they can block any and all resolutions. And I mean literally any and all resolutions. The permanent members include China, France, Russia, the UK, and the US. The worst examples of the use of this veto power, unfortunately, comes during international crisis and humanitarian crisis. For example, a 2017 article from CNN shows 8 times Russia vetoed a Security Council resolution on Syria regarding the use of chemical weapons on Syrian civilians. 8 times. This is an article from 2017. If we track forward, there's a lot more. There's another example. The US has vetoed many resolutions, but the most common ones are resolutions, for example, from Algeria, demanding an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Palestine. That was on 20th February 2024. It's one of many that the US has vetoed, and the examples are many. When you think of the reforms that have been perhaps posited by different people, there's plenty. Let me get that right. There was a call to redesign our financial architecture so that institutions like the IMF and the World Bank are more equitable and they allow more voices for developing countries, for more concessional finance, and the alleviation of debt burdens. Okay, these all happened at the Summit for the Future. There was also a call to change how the security structures and the UN Security Council is structured and to give Africa, Asia, Latin America, etc. seats on the UN Security Council. That was last year, bado tunangoja. When it comes to prosecutions, the ICC was created to enforce universal accountability. Not even world, universal accountability. But its prosecutions in practice have focused heavily on Africa and the global south, while cases involving powerful states or their allies are often either stalled or deprioritized, or they are narrow. Basically, they just kind of die a sudden, quiet death. In 2023, for example, the ICC issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin over the Ukraine war. But the enforcement of that is nearly impossible because, of course, wealthy nations will shield their leaders. Which country will arrest Vladimir Putin, right? In contrast, when you think of African leaders like Sudan's Omar al-Bashir, he's faced travel restrictions for years because of ICC warrants. This is not, by the way, in any way to disregard that he is a war criminal, but it is just to say that, you know what, there's war criminals from the global south, and then there's the same from elsewhere. Beyond multilateral relations, think of how we consume things, our consumerism. Across the board, there have been different standards in manufacturing for what comes to Africa and what comes to the global south and what goes to the rest of the world. Soft drink manufacturers will often sell sodas which have a higher sugar content here and in the global south as a whole. Global south ni fikiria tu equator going downwards, right? Baby formula manufacturers sell products with more sugar and less nutrients in Africa. They also market their formula more aggressively because of lack of controls, which then deprioritizes breast milk, which is incredibly nutritious, right, where possible. Cosmetics companies will sell their products which have been banned or contain banned substances or harmful bleaching agents like hydroquinone and mercury in Asia and Africa. These are all things that have been threaded through time and time again. NGOs like Médecins Sans Frontières, that's MSF, Doctors Without Borders, have documented cases where big pharma companies have sold older, less effective HIV and AIDS drugs in Africa long after better versions were available in the north. They were justified as being cheaper options for poorer countries. So this whole idea that there's some level playing field, that there's a global system where countries are partners and some are not predators or prey, to me, I say, miss me with that.
Whoa.
Where?
Whoa.
We've threaded from debt burden to cosmetics and
yeah, the whole
to life.
To life itself.
Hey, guys. Yeah.
We find ourselves in such a strange predicament because now there's heightened awareness that's been met with heightened pushback. Then I often ask myself, how do you push back from something that you find yourself so deep in? You know, I know that leadership should be fighting for us. They should be, because how are you accepting all of these banned products because it's cheaper? So when your leaders are also not at the table making a case, then what do you do? That's kind of where, that's what I'm grappling with. Because right now the conversation on the global south is, you know, the new frontier.
Yeah.
It's like we've always been the frontier. Right. I suppose.
Welcome to the party.
Welcome to the party. But it also came because of the pushback. And I can thread it back to COVID. And this is, I'm speaking because there's so many different categories you've spoken to, Mariam, all of which are critical. So even in this one for the space and development, for example, we started hearing this pushback around COVID. All of a sudden, people's voices became strong and bold and said, actually, you don't get to treat us this way. You don't get to second us. You don't get to other us. You get to center us.
Right.
And so that slowly I saw, it was a bit jarring, I think.
People were
People were like, oh, you know, because it's easy to keep taking what you've been fed for so long.
True.
But because COVID was this equalizer, it was able to have people say, center us. If we're the frontline workers, why are you bypassing us to give aid to your friend? And then you also want us to meet KPIs that have absolutely nothing to do with the situation on the ground. Those are your KPIs. And so I think over time, I believe it's what influenced, in a sense, the decision to say, let's focus on the global south. They're like, you bet.
And then there's also the pretense that it's their idea. It's like we've come to the awareness that the global south is the new frontier.
Well, that's how you save yourself. Eh?
Yeah,
You have to package it to be like, actually, new awareness. It's like, I'm just thinking out loud, but it's like, okay, but then where do you go from here? Where do you go from here? We had Wavinya also thread, because this is also a form of decolonizing, right? It's taking back the agency. It's understanding your position. It's understanding the unfairness. But really, Mariam and Eric, so then where do we go from here?
I see various strands to this. One, there's a structural issue in the way the world is structured. And for a long time, those that, carried the message are the developed world. and the developing and underdeveloped world did not have any message to carry because it was not on the table. And sort of, it's like we accepted to be where we were and looking up and seeing, we don't belong there, we don't belong to those tables. And there's a greater push now to say that, no, we belong to the table. And there's a push to restructure this, the multilateral order. And like you've, mentioned it there, the Summit of the Future last year, hosted by the UN Secretary General in New York, was to say, let's discuss a new world where we have, we are dealing all of us as treating everybody as equal.
Yes.
And everybody in the room. And then how do we integrate ourselves? There's the push for the restructuring of the global financial system. And President William Ruto has actually been very, very vocal on this. And every time he gets these opportunities, he speaks about it and saying, we've got to restructure the global financial system. He's not mixing and mincing words here. He's clear in saying this is what we need to restructure.
Right.
We need to have the developing world having stronger voices on the board of the World Bank and such international financial institutions. We need to have a review of how access to credit is then granted to the developing world because of all these other challenges. We also need to acknowledge that what climate change has had as an impact to this developing world and how it needs to get a leg up. So he's been very clear and consistent on those. The thing is, you just hear various voices and not unified voice.
Right.
And I think that's where our challenge would be in that, so what is this so-called global south doing about it? Do we just sit back and, just say, make noise and say, you should open the door for us to enter so that we can sit at the table?
Yeah.
Or what do you do about it? If indeed we are as many as we are, why is it so hard for that push to have greater representation in the UN Security Council and proper representation? And why we're not coming to say, so let's all agree, let's discuss what do the current permanent members think, how should we structure, how the African nations come in, should we look at population strength, should we look at military strength, should we look at economic strength, or what should we consider, and so on and so forth. I think we are yet to internalize the fact that we want change. So we talk about it surface level, but we don't do much more.
Maybe because not everybody is convinced that we want change. I think we internalized the brokenness, mainstreamed it, and then just moved forward with it. Yes.
It's part and parcel.
It's part and parcel, and it's convenient. It's convenient for the select few who benefit. And that's what I'm saying. If the select few who benefit cannot speak for the majority who are undermined as a result, that is the biggest problem. I think people are very aware. The way you're talking about the president, other heads of state, they're aware because it's also not sustainable. What's happened is that it's caught up with all of these countries.
True.
But the people who've benefited from it are a lot of the time the leaders of the countries. You benefit from the aid, you benefit from the loans, then all of a sudden you find yourself decades in, you're trapped in a debt cycle, you're trapped in, a major donor pulls out and suddenly you're grappling with what to do next. But you benefited from it for so long that you forgot that when it affects the majority, it's going to come back and the majority will say, when you go to Anga, also with having this conversation, because the UN General Assembly convening is happening this week and into next week, when you go there, you have to represent our voices. So now I don't believe that a lot of leaders want to fix the broken. They've benefited from it for so long. The pressure is now coming from citizens saying that this is no longer sustainable. So when you say, when they're kind of saying, we should have our voices heard, back and no bite. You've benefited. Now you have to rethink how you're going to now begin to delink yourself from the broken system which you benefited from.
Delink? What about building your own?
One of our issues, though, is that internally, we always look for who to blame among us.
Okay.
All right? And one of the things that will not help us is that lack of unity. So guys from the East will look at guys from the West and say, you West, do this. From the South, I'm talking about Africa. right? From the south, they look at those in the central and they say, you know, Central Africa, those in the Horn, you guys are blah, 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 this and the other. And so we are fragmented.
Yes.
Internally within countries, then we also start looking and saying, yeah, but you see, there is, if you look at the leadership of the AU, who's sitting in the AU, I mean, that person is the richest person, and so therefore we miss the bigger picture when we do that,
right?
Because then we actually don't get a moment to harmonize our voice.
That's fair.
Yeah.
We don't get that moment to harmonize our voice. We are constantly just...
Yeah, the fragmentation is one of the biggest hindrances.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was just trying to not get... Okay, in the next half hour, I want to radically say, let's build our own. And we look at how to do that. Because I think a big part of why we're here is you're entering ni kama we ni mgeni. These things are not really meant for you. And that's part of the problem. That you're entering as a visitor, so again, you don't have bargaining power. What your resource or the things that are valuable to you are not valuable to others. So you'll always be at a disadvantage. It's how do you strengthen self? How do you build your own? Because you could ask for a seat at the Security Council, but it's begging. You're at the mercy of the 5 permanent members. And now you have to go lobby the other 10 and try to figure out some way to do it. You could ask for better credit rating systems, or you could try and figure out within, is there someone who can lend me? You know, things like that.
Yeah, that's wild, because I had a note here to say, should Africa keep waiting on broken promises or start building homegrown solutions?
That part.
So, and it's the how.
Yeah.
Because it sounds so radical and it sounds like it's something that can't be done. Because to Eric's point, it's what's been sold for decades, centuries even. It's like you can't do this without us. You can't. Stop trying to. And it's a lot of unlearning. It's coming out of a lot of trauma and waking up to the realization that we can. But how do you make that something that is internally believed? And then how do you translate that to the systems enabling it?
Right.
And then what does implementation look like? If we're going to go really granular, what does homegrown look like?
Right.
Because that honestly is the solution. The how is daunting. People are like, I see, but we just continue receiving, it's easier.
Right.
Let's continue lobbying, it's easier, it's more convenient. But when the world does a number,
you get so confused. Before we, and we're going to go into that, because it's a good question. I'll ask this: is there a benefit to us, to the world order as is? Let me put it like this. USAID funding HIV and AIDS research, treatment, awareness campaigns, etc. That can only come from donor and donee, I don't know, receivee, whatever you want to... Recipient, yes, relationship.
Yeah.
Then again, you see them pull out, you see the gaps. You're like, okay, what happens? The concessional loans, for example, that we receive from the World Bank, it's because we are classified as developing country, if it says sisi ni developed, bonamna tueka, okay, bye loans at 1%, 2%, good interest rates, and hello, standard banking, whatever, for the world. And it's like, here's your 30%. So as much as this other flip side, which I've talked about, are there bits of it that work for us?
You could argue that.
It's a good question.
Kenya rebased its economy, and so now we are no longer getting those concessions because we are no longer on the poor side.
Yeah.
So we are now.
That's true. That's exactly what happened.
We are at a different level.
A different tax bracket.
Yeah. But even that, if you just consider that, it's what do you do with the money that you have access to? Okay, cheaper or not, it's are you utilizing it there, to benefit yourself, to grow yourself, and is everything else coming to support that, or are you still taking that money and going into just raw material production? and not having the capacity to process, to become financially more independent, to become bigger, to get out of that, cheaper loan stage to a place where you're lending to others. I mean, what does that need to, what do you need to do to get there? And how many of your systems are you basically deciding that this is how we're going to make it radical, and so on and so forth?
Okay.
I think let's take a break and come back and look at, so what happens? How do we restructure this? How do we, can we take lessons from other parts of the world that maybe this is what they've done? Yeah. So let's do a break at 27 minutes after 8. Miss me with that. Mariam is saying, you know what, the way the global systems are structured, multilateralism is just a word and not deed, not practice, not anywhere close to reality. And she says,
miss me with that.
Absolutely, there's a lot of feedback from the conversation. Ulysses says the notion that other big economies are spared from the consequences of financial mismanagement, not quite true. France's credit rating was just downgraded last week. Plano says the seat at the table will never be available. It is better to set a new table and make those at the high table move to your side, like BRICS, which is what we were alluding to just now.
Yes, we were even going to go into BRICS.
Into BRICS. And then somebody else here, Bakari Sagna, this is now when we say radical solutions. Africa should withdraw from the UN. A strengthened AU offers greater self-determination and solutions tailored to African priorities, not foreign agendas. But do we know that? Do we know that part?
Right.
Yeah, so just the world is a marketplace. If a country is not purposeful and strategic, nothing will happen but talk with zero output. All righty.
Okay. No, I largely agree. No, from maps, still like the one says, from maps, medicine to what we consume, it's time for African countries to wake up. That's, I think we all agree. You say, thank you, Mariam. That's powerful. I think we agree on the wake up as people. I don't know if, like you said, the leaders agree, but there is a push as well. Because now it's like, what's the fix, right? Where do we go from here? And someone mentioned BRICS as well in the comment. It's one of the good examples of how things are realigning. And BRICS is basically an alliance of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And it was founded a while ago, but the idea is to counterweight the G7. So it was formed as a, as a counter, but it's an alliance that's very powerful. But I think initially even, it was Brazil, Russia, India, China. Then it was kind of like South Africa, as an afterthought. So there's still something to be said about how we build things that serve us and suit us.
And we'll come back to what you said about building home. And I know Eric wants to get into something. Some things to consider in terms of how we fix. So it's demanding fair debt restructuring and climate debt swaps. Wow.
What's a climate debt swap?
The same way we had the food
debt swap.
The food debt swap.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's what does it look like at a granular level? I'll mention a bit more, then we'll go to what Eric is saying as we come to what does it look like to build one's own table. This one for crises, it's about it's calling for a global levy so that all crises are treated equally. I think that's been the most jarring example of multilateral I like the way we've said the word so much, and then it's inequality that has come up a lot online across the board is how crises are treated differently. They're all global crises.
Right.
Some are more crises than others. So how do we push for that? Demand enforceable loss and damage payments. Push World Trade Organization to stop unfair subsidies. That one I don't know how we'll do. And finally, strengthen African courts to demand fairer global justice. I like those solutions because it's touched on trade, it's touched on crises, it's touched on justice. And maybe it's to find those cornerstones of what pushing for multilateral fairness and equality looks like, because it's usually pegged on things around justice and fairness, because that speaks to leadership, and everything emanates from there. So if people can get away with anything, how are we fixing the justice systems here?
Right.
Debt keeps coming up.
True.
So just looking at those and starting there, because then it's such a massive bear to skin. So where do you begin?
I think those ones are already ongoing, especially after last year's. That's the thing.
Summit of the Future.
Yeah.
That's the thing about such things, because you'll find that, Summit of the Futures comes and they come up with 56 actions. that UN member states committed last year.
Yes.
To in areas like peace and security, sustainable development, climate change, digital cooperation, human rights. It's the same as the Paris Agreement on climate. Agree on something, then now let's see how we shall work it out. Takes forever.
Yeah.
Right? It takes just
If
at all, because it will be a conversation, it'll be something. There'll be things that are introduced as the conversations progress. I like the radical one that has been proposed, not necessarily pull out of the UN, but look at
strengthen the AU.
But strengthening the AU, this was a journey that was started by Muammar Gaddafi. And it used to be the Organization of African Unity. He said, you know, guys, let's have a United States of Africa. Let's talk about African unity as a thing.
Yeah.
And he hosted in Libya in 1999 talks that now gave birth to African Union. He said, let's strengthen ourselves as an AU. And just before he died, he was again back on that and saying, how do we make Africa stronger, have a stronger voice as Africa?
Right.
The smaller countries would support, the bigger countries would be, how are we playing into this? So Gaddafi's push for a stronger AU, which led to the introduction of the AU Parliament, for example, the AU Court on Human Rights and such institutions, was on this. Let's push the AU, let's grow the AU. The EU has been taking it on the journey to becoming a bigger thing with the AU 2063 agenda and so on and so forth.
Right.
But what's the momentum around it after the death of Muammar Gaddafi? What are we doing to strengthen the voice of the AU? I'll give you an example just before you come in, Mariam. We know that there's a global crisis going on right now in Sudan.
Yes.
Sudan has been at war. AU leaders meet and they form a quartet of African countries under IGAD to look at how to resolve the issues in Sudan.
Right.
The countries that come in, Kenya, I think Uganda was there, several countries in Africa. The push to resolve the conflict in Sudan has just been going on, so on and so forth. One side in Sudan saying, Kenya is biased, we don't want Kenya. Another side saying South Sudan can come in and have a conversation. Can South Sudan chair? South Sudan itself is having issues internally. Now there's a new quartet, that met.
Quartet.
They are the Quad.
Okay.
Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and the USA.
Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and the US.
Yes. How many of those are in Africa?
One.
Okay. So they have met, they've held consultations. In fact, there's a statement yesterday by the Kenya's Foreign Affairs Ministry that was saying, these guys have met and they've had a conversation. And it was very diplomatically worded here. The government of Kenya welcomes the joint statement issued by the Quad on their consultations aimed at restoring peace and security in Sudan, noting that this effort reflects our shared commitment to dialogue and lasting peace in Sudan and the region. It says Kenya reaffirms its call for a unified and coordinated response from IGAD, the AU, the UN, the Arab League, and the broader international community in support of Sudan. So basically, Kenya is coming to say, diplomatically, basically, Kenya is pushing back and saying this process should be led by IGAD,
the AU.
Right? Yeah. And then you can bring in the Arab League and the others. If you go through that entire statement, the final point, Kenya calls upon all stakeholders to prioritize dialogue over confrontation and to support an inclusive and African-led peace process, coordinated with other peace initiatives and backed by the international community, right? And says Kenya remains committed to working with regional global partners. So here is Kenya basically coming out to say, okay, we hear you and we do not want to ruffle the feathers of what you guys have done.
Yeah.
You've achieved something, yes, but moving forward, can we come back into this should be an African-led process?
What has the African-led process produced?
You see, now that's where we start the issues. The African-led peace process has gone on for a while. The IGAD process has gone on for a while. This one has not produced anything as well. It's still on talking stage.
Ongoing, yeah.
But who are the protagonists in this particular conflict?
They're African, but with other players.
Yes. If you look at this Quad,
yes,
Does it have innocent people coming to the table to deal with the issue of Sudan and so on and so forth?
Yes.
Because I think it should not matter on what the African process has produced yet. It should be that the African process should produce something.
And Mariam, just before you come in, don't lose your point, because I know you have several. It sounds like Quad came and said, Bas. Bas. Let us.
Let the big boys take
literally, let the big boys take this one and show you how it's done. Because for decades, that's exactly what's happened. I'm not surprised that there's been a Quad coming up with more finances and bulldozers. It's bullying, low-key. Yes, I know all of us have an interest to, I hope. We want Sudan to move towards thriving. We do, to peace. On this continent, people want that.
Yes.
When other people come in, it's very easy to see mixed agendas. But I'm not surprised that they would come and intercept and be like, since you all have taken decades to figure out how to move forward with this, let's show you how it's done. I think it's because either African nations don't know how to explain that our process is long-term. This has also been an issue in the donor world, by the way, where people will come and give a 2-year grant for something that can only really be addressed in 15 years. Because it's norms. You can't put a time frame on norms, and you're told you have 2 years to make sure that you build a community of allies who will push back on gender.
In 2 years.
Thank you. That's been, and again, there's pushback to that. So I'm not too surprised. To your point, Eric, it's like, well, whether or not it's produced anything, it should be Africa-led.
Yes.
But we need to question what that Africa-led means and looks like, because it can go on forever because it's benefiting a select few people and not really pushing towards solution. It's something else. Sorry, Mariam, come in.
No.
Yeah.
I completely agree, actually. My only thing was, as we push towards this, what's the foundation? I'm looking at the way the world operates now, and a lot of, for example, the United Nations was formed post-World War, right? The foundation was cooperation with the goal of long-lasting peace. That is the foundation of the United Nations, right? And again, the earliest members were those warring countries, and they came in saying, we're not doing this again. What's the foundation of the...
At least we shall not fight on our soil.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Is he answering what the question is, or is he saying they were saying?
Yes, they were saying.
We take it elsewhere.
Yes, we'll take the fighting elsewhere. Yeah, it won't be at home, but proxy...
Yes,
chafwe nyumbani. Proxy wars we can do, but not at home, not within.
Must you drop such things?
I didn't mean it hit me. I was just like, and he's right. But what's the foundation?
You ask a good question. What is the foundation
of the African Union? Muammar Gaddafi foresaw a united Africa. Fine. What is it rooted on? What's the thing that's bringing us together? Is it being on the same continent? Because I don't know if that's enough, to be quite honest.
That's a starting point, and that we're all of the same color. That's the second starting point.
Yes.
You know, because...
except some of us don't consider themselves African.
Well, but we are of the same color. You may consider
it's those students who are saying, but we are not, you're told, Nyamaza. Conversation in Endelea.
Just like in Kenya, there's some people who don't consider themselves Kenyan.
Yeah.
We're like, be that as it may.
Yes.
And we have similar issues, whether it's healthcare, whether it's corruption. So the foundation is, do we have a push to want better for the continent?
That should be basic.
If you look at the foundations of the OAU, and you keep quoting Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, I know the Pan-Africanists, they were coming together and there was something in common. One, many of us, a majority of us, save who? One, Ethiopia, are colonized.
Yes.
And we need these guys out so we can run our affairs, right? So there was that one. And then we all have something in common. We need to now start growing our economy. We need to start, developing our people and our countries. Those are the foundations that the Pan-Africanists had, Kina Kwame Nkrumah and Mzee and Nyerere and others. That's what they had in mind. If you come into the second stage of Kina Gaddafi and the others, it's the same thing that they were looking at, like how do we negotiate better? We all acknowledge that we have the resources that are being used out there. We all acknowledge that we are the ones who are feeding the world in terms of raw material.
Right.
How do we come together and use that as leverage and negotiate better and deal better with the rest of the world? There's semblances of that conversation happening.
Yeah.
And then somewhere it just gets disrupted kidogo, but it appears to be moving. I think what you need is just strong leadership. at some point.
Right.
Strongly, like Gaddafi coming out to say, you know what, okay, guys, come. Come to the desert in Sirte, in Libya.
Yes.
I have something to tell you. When you come out of here, we are changing this thing from OAU to AU. Okay? And we move. And we What do we need? We need money. I have some oil.
Yeah.
I'll dedicate 2 wells to fund this thing. To underlay. What else do we need? You know? That thing, radical decision making.
Yes, yes. I mean, 100. That's a really good way to break it down. And it comes back to what you said, Mariam, which is the radical, which is build our own. Ties back to what Eric is saying. But it can't happen if you don't have that will. If you don't have leaders who are on the same page, who are, to his point, very fragmented in what their agenda is, where you go out there and you're talked down at and you'll take it. Because that's what you've internalized for so long.
Yes. I'll never forget, the bus fiasco. Where was it the Pope's burial? No.
Queen Elizabeth's.
Yes. And it was, you know what, heads of state from elsewhere will come with their motorcades and and then Samia kakaribu hapa na William.
Who wants to kill you guys? You guys are okay.
It's not perception. It's perception. It's either we all take the bus or we all bring our motorcades. The double standard there is very odd.
Yes, and that's, you see, they're treating us that way. You can go in there and be treated that way. How do you treat yourself?
At home.
Yes.
Okay.
What was the quote yesterday? if we want to fix our politics,
we have to fix ourselves.
You have to see how you see yourself. So I think the fix here is two-pronged. It goes to what Mariam is saying is build, but it's what Latif said, which is, okay, what are actually those granular sort of like ways in which, but it can't happen if we are fragmented. So maybe the question is, I think young people are beginning to be, aligned on wanting to root out corruption and other issues. How does that scale to the bigger leadership? Because I think on the continent, young folks are starting to say the same thing.
Yeah.
And maybe they are the ones in 20 years who will build this table, because they're like, see, you guys don't have work, even us, we don't have. You guys are having issues with loans for uni, even us. You guys are, maybe it will take people who literally are on the same page saying, we don't need this anymore, so what are we doing? There's something on our screens right now.
Yeah, that's the statement on the Quad. This is the government of Kenya. Maybe we can restart it, Phil. Government of Kenya statement on the joint statement by the Quad on restoring peace and security in Sudan. And of course, it's what Eric had said. It was issued by Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and the US on their consultations on restoring peace. It's a positive initiative. It should be embraced by all parties to the conflict in Sudan. Now, acknowledging the Quad's readiness to collaborate, Kenya reaffirms its call for a united and coordinated response from IGAD, the African Union, the United Nations, the Arab League, and the broader international community to support Sudan. Most significantly, Kenya underscores the need to harmonize the various peace tracks into an African-led process firmly supported by the international community. So I like the wording of the statement because it acknowledges you're coming from a good place. Nakuelewa, and you're right, Eric. Then the undercut comes, which is hawezi skip IGAD, skip AU.
Like next time ukikuja, upitie mlango.
Singia na dirisha. That's exactly it. The urgency of addressing the unprecedented humanitarian crisis cannot be overstated. There must be concerted international efforts to compel the belligerents to observe a humanitarian ceasefire. Kenya remains committed to facilitating the delivery of humanitarian supplies through its territory to support the people of Sudan. Now, I like that as well because it affirms Kenya's place in peacekeeping, and which has been our place with our neighbors for a long time. Now that comes again on the back of situations where it looks like we're leaning towards one side, hosting RSF leaders. It doesn't look good. But this ni kusafisha kidogo.
Dr. Obi, who we hosted here, her movement is fix politics, because she says, you want to get anything else right, you have to fix that. And she'll always give reference to how other countries did it and how this continent can and how it should. And she's gone all the way to even try to create a course that is like, guys, if we follow some of this, but you can't escape. There's a formula, but she says you can't skip the soft issues. You can't fix the integrity that Latif speaks about. There's certain things that you can't run away from. You always want to go straight to, I want to be your leader. Let's take you back, sir. There's a comment here. The foundations for African unity are very weak at best. Africa, first of all, is not quite the epitome of good governance. Having a harmonious relationship with all countries on the continent is tough. And I think this keeps coming up. Building bridges. If we as Africans want to grow, we should first eradicate any tiny, she says, chinchilli issues that affect us. Yeah. Our only choice is to be strong economically and militarily. That's music is life. That's the only way that you get other countries to respond to your demands. The world is brutal, and asking to be included does not work. So some really strong views here, but the two things that keep coming out are our own table, but first the leaders leading on that front.
Yes.
My take home is, I know it can happen, but I think it needs a demographic that is willing to, and I don't know if that time is now.
I think it should be. You know, it should not wait.
It should be. It shouldn't wait. It's urgent.
If you look at all those young, the young demographic in the 60s of Africa was trying to go the same direction, got distracted. The young demographic of the 80s was trying to go the same direction, got distracted. Young demographic of the 2000s, same direction, gets distracted. There's some progress things that are made, and others that just collapse. The East African community is older than the European Union. The East African community went and collapsed. The European Union is what it is today.
Oh my goodness.
Now look at that, right? What happened to the EAC? What happened to the the EU? If you then look beyond that, we now have the African Continental Free Trade Area that we've established and said that this is one thing that we can look at. But how much support are we giving it? How much are we actually talking about it and going into that direction and saying, we use this as our bargaining chip? Many countries are lagging behind in joining the negotiations, which leads to frustrations of countries like, such as Kenya that are like, wait, us guys have been relying on this thing called AGOA. AGOA is coming to an end. It's going to have an impact on us. So can we discuss with as AFCTA? No. Then can we go alone?
Right.
I say it needs radical leadership.
Yes, it
does. There's a guy in 1978 who he was a leader of the party in the 70s. 1976, the leader of China, Chairman Mao, dies. 1977, a guy called Deng Xiaoping takes over leadership of the party. 1978, he properly consolidates power and becomes the new president of China. He embarked on a journey, and he was clear. Embarking on a journey where it is reform and opening up. This country is no longer going to be closed in. Right. We are going to reform this country. We are going to do things, and we're going to change. And I will be in office for 10 years. I will leave. Someone else comes for 10 years. They leave. Somebody else comes for 10 years. They leave. And the party shall be identifying who takes over. Okay? In a generation, in the time it took from the moment you were born, Mariam, to now, 500 million people moved out of poverty in one country.
500.
Because of this.
The reforms and the leadership.
By the time we're getting to the third leader after Deng Xiaoping, China was already where it was. And now, we just saw China displaying to the world, this is us.
Yes.
This is our
military arsenal, but it was more than that, of course. It was a show of more than that.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. Our radical leaders will end up because, let's be honest.
I mean, we have one.
We have several in Africa.
We have several, but there's one who now becoming that beacon of, so this is what it takes. It's radical, it's polarizing, but it's radical reform for what he sees as this is the only way I can lift my country. But what about the pushback that's coming?
I feel like now it's one here and there, whereas for a few generations there was you have a time when Muammar Gaddafi is alive at the same time as Julius Nyerere is alive at the same time as Thomas. I'm not saying that's, but you get what I mean. So if at that point this conversation was happening, guaranteed they would have sat down over a chai, and this would have been a done deal. And a proper AU, all of that. Now it's scattered. It's okay, Traore, okay, a whisper. Anyway, we have to close the hour.
We have to close, but we're coming back to still thread, with our Wakili, who hopefully will be able to, our Wakili, a quick one, to make sense of it. Trying to find my notes that have his name, Wakili Ocheng. I know that much. And let's see whether we can also pass some of this information onto him and let him break it down granular and be like, legally, structurally, can it work? To Eric's point, it will take the right leadership. As we wait, what does that look like? How can we push as we wait? But that conversation is coming up in just a moment. It's coming up to 9 a.m. So we will have a continuation of Mariam's Miss Me with that. Wakili Ocheng will come and bring it home with legal and structural matters. Fixing the nation one conversation at a time. Back in a moment.